Welcome, everyone. It's Nancy Narden of Smart Selling Tools, and I'm pleased to have our guest with us today, Chris Williams. He's the Chief Commercial Officer for Tripwire. Chris, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you, Nancy. Good to be here.
I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself and Tripwire, but first let me just tell the folks on the webinar that we will be recording this and you'll be able to listen back to it later or share it with your colleagues, whatever you prefer. And we're going to be talking about specifically how Tripwire leveraged a solution called Valkre, which is a customer outcome platform, and it actually helped them fuel a turnaround. So we'll get into a little bit about that. Chris, why don't we start by just having you give some background on what your role is with Tripwire and maybe your background in general.
Sure. So I've been at Tripwire a little over 2 years. I came to Tripwire from the parent company, Belden, which I've been with Belden for about 10 years. In various sales leadership roles. And I've been in a sales professional for, I think I just hit my 25th year in the sales field.
And then what about Tripwire? Give us some background on the company.
Sure. So Tripwire is a cybersecurity software company. We help customers both on-prem and in the cloud from the top floor to their shop floor, we like to say, in terms of helping them with enabling compliance, security, and vulnerability management at their sites and within their enterprise and factory operations. We've got many different customers, particularly those in the Fortune 2000, a lot of utilities, federal governments, and also SMB companies that look to deploy some of our smaller point solutions for cybersecurity.
Well, let's dive into what this term customer outcome platform means. I know you've been using it at Tripwire. What does that mean, a customer outcome platform?
I think most of us understand that we need to be able to talk about our customers' challenges and how we solve those problems. And the outcomes that customers can get, but not necessarily in terms of our own products or features and functions. So we ideally would like to talk in terms of customer problems and customer outcomes and how that benefits their business and how that adds value. You know, that's often easier said than done, but Valkre is a really powerful tool to help us get there.
So why do you think it's difficult for sellers in general to stay focused on customer outcomes? And why does technology need to play a role? Isn't it really just about reframing the way your sellers talk about or have conversations with their prospects?
Yeah, I think it's not that simple. It's not just like flipping a switch and say, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to start talking about customer outcomes instead of talking about features and benefits. There needs to be a process that sits under it, and there has to be work done across. In the case of Tripwire, we've really linked up sales, marketing, and product management as the key functions behind the process and behind the work that's being done. And what Valkre does for us is it enables that cross-functional collaboration, and it allows us to coordinate functions by bringing it all to life so that we can talk about value that we deliver in terms of customer outcomes.
Okay. Yeah, there's been a lot of talk and has been for a long time about alignment between marketing and sales. And you're talking about alignment really, it sounds like across the organization. But let's get into how it enables the process and what you mean by coordinating multiple functions. Can you give a little more color on that?
Sure. So let's start with the endpoint, which is sales. So we enable sales gets access to Valkre via our Salesforce.com CRM. Our sales can search for value creation playbooks for our offerings based on a customer challenge that they're seeing, and or by the particular vertical that the customer plays in. Because I mentioned earlier about federal customers versus a utility versus a bank or a fintech company. They may have different challenges. So Valkre allows us to search for those based on the type of customer we're engaging. Once a playbook is selected, sales is provided the info that they need to sell on outcomes. The customer challenges are addressed by offer. The customer outcome, selling message, or value prop is provided to the seller. And then along with that, we have many offerings that we can easily walk into a prospect or customer that we've been doing business with for a long time and show them the ROI that they're getting from using Tripwire. And then it also allows us to have customer testimonials and proof points that we can use, particularly within our customers as they're selling. And I'll make a point later when we're talking about how marketing can really hone the message that we're getting based on this information that we're collecting from our customers. The other thing that the tool allows us to do is to customize everything I just previously said based on the input from the customer and connect the value proposition that we've selected to the deal we're trying to close. So it really gives us, each time we engage with a customer, it gives us, the Valkre tool gives us the chance to iterate and fine tune our message, because we're always getting new information from customers as far as what they value about our offering. And in turn, we can take that information to the next deal, and we have a way of using the Valkre tool to organize that and make sure that it's relevant to the value points that the customer has given us.
Yeah. Let me just jump in for a second here, because you said a couple of things that I was a little surprised by in a good way, and that is that you're using the ROI calculators, value calculators, to demonstrate to current customers the value that they're getting. And I think a lot of times, talking about value selling and being able to quantify value, we think about pre-sales and acquiring new customers. So would you say it's allowing you to retain more customers or a higher percent than you could in the past?
It does, because by having this conversation with our existing customers, it strengthens the value prop for future customers because it's based on real input. And we know that simply servicing an existing customer doesn't necessarily lead to more business. You can service a customer really well, and that just allows you to maintain. What we know is that in order to grow business with existing customers, you need to demonstrate value. And the way we demonstrate value is having these conversations by asking them, what differentiates Tripwire from your next best option? And that could be our competitor, that could be their own internal capability. So we really try to fine tune with our existing customers, what is it that differentiates us from your next best option? And you get some really interesting answers. And sometimes it's unrelated to the product itself. And we go in with some assumptions in those conversations. And the Valkre tool allows us to have those conversations, collect and organize the data, and then use it later in different ways, which means that we can fine tune our marketing message because we know what really resonates with our customers because they're telling us. And we can also use it as a way to inform and prioritize the things that we're working on with our product management and with our R&D. So it really goes in three directions. It goes toward product management and making decisions about future products. It goes toward marketing to allow us to fine tune our message to the market. And it goes toward future sales opportunities because it makes our salespeople better because they can, by living the process every day, the Valkre tool helps enable that. But it also prepares them for the inevitable elevator ride. And they're always prepared for talking to the executive, their customer, in terms of, here's the value that we as an organization provide, as said by your own organization. Here's the things that we've validated, and we've saved you X amount of dollars over the last, either the term of the relationship or pick your time frame. So it's really powerful stuff, and it allows our sellers to always be prepared for that conversation.
Yeah, and it sounds like what it does is it provides a framework and also a scalable methodology for really getting the entire sales team on board and for continuing to update and improve on the process, because we're not talking about having a few sessions internally and figuring out, well, what are the different value props and capturing them, and it's just a snapshot in time, and then you hope things stay the same. That's
One of the things I should emphasize is it's all dynamic. It doesn't stop. It's an ongoing, it's a march. It's a way of doing business. It's a way of selling, and it's a way of thinking and operating. When a product is updated, a campaign is launched, or a new product is introduced, Valkre gives us that place to enable the work and hold the process together across multiple functions. And it creates a lot of momentum and a sustaining change toward a more customer-centric approach into working with customers. It really helps keep us centered on that approach.
That makes sense. How were you doing this before?
I guess the simple answer is it was either ad hoc or wasn't being done. And the concepts of talking return on investment with customers, those have been around a long time. I think what Valkre does is allows us to really have that transformation into our daily work, and having the structure and the fabric in place that makes it easy to sustain and make it consistent across the multiple functions that have to be engaged. And it gives us that anchor by which we can have common conversations about what is the most valuable to our customers and how do we go articulate that to them. In some cases, we built the Valkre tool into the product introduction to the customer. When we engage with the customer, because we have a managed service offering, for example, the Valkre tool, you can't talk to the customer without using Valkre, because we've customized it so that it takes all of the customer's inputs and shows specifically customized for that customer what the return on investment is by using Tripwire over the next 1, 3, or 5 year period. So we've integrated it so much into our way of doing business that it's impossible not to use it.
Well, that makes me think about a couple of things. One is that how much of an advantage do you feel it gives you over your competitors? Because if a competitor tries to get their way into one of your accounts, your account, your customer is used to having these value conversations. And if your competitor can't do the same, then I would imagine it would help you keep competitors at bay.
It does. That's an interesting question, because I have not been a part of a conversation where we take this approach where the customer doesn't say at the end, wow, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and nobody has ever done this before. So it does help build that, the moat around the customer, or that extra defense against a competitor. And this for sure, using the process and using the Valkre tool absolutely helps to do that. It kind of raises the friction cost of a competitor to have to come in and take our business, because we're having these conversations that are different from what most customers are used to. We don't talk about our product features and benefits. We talk about outcomes and value that it brings to their business. And it does change the game a little bit on what your competitors are doing.
Yeah, I also picked up on that. You said that the Valkre is used, not to put words in your mouth, but throughout every conversation. And so I'm assuming that means earlier in the sales process rather than later in the sales process. And I've often heard about ROI tools brought in to help close the deal. So what are your thoughts about starting from the beginning to weave in the value conversation?
Yeah, I think if it's a new logo, if it's a new customer, then it absolutely is it's an early part of the sales cycle. It can be the end and the beginning of a new sales cycle, if that makes sense. Meaning, as we're having ongoing conversations, what we find is that by using the Valkre tool, it leads us down paths that we may never get to before. One of the questions we like to document with Valkre is, it's the blank check question. So if Mr. Customer, and it's usually at the end, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, now that we've talked about the things you like and derive value from, and we always ask, we talk about the things that could be improved. If you were in charge of our investment money, where would you put it? And you get some really interesting answers. So it's kind of the magic wand question. And a lot of times that leads to new opportunities that we wouldn't normally uncovered, because we get them to think differently about how they could engage with us. And that's been invaluable for the start of new opportunities for us.
Yeah, what I love about that is it helps provide structure to a conversation that is, as you've said, not about just products and features. It's about a conversation that's actually helping the customer think through the things that they need to be thinking about. And that's a real differentiator. And today, I think differentiation is so important because it's often hard to differentiate on features, and
Right.
certainly hard to differentiate on user experience because people don't really know until they start using it. So anything, even if it's the selling process itself and how conversations differ from competitors, if that's the differentiator, that can mean all the difference in the world when you're closing new business.
Absolutely. It's absolutely true. There's been a fundamental shift here. The shift from walking into our customers and throwing up features and functions versus going with a different mindset. And the mindset is understanding the customer's challenges, talking about how we can influence outcomes. And there's multiple things that leads to, like I said earlier, with new opportunities. And then we develop trust that leads to a better close rate. And that's been a huge benefit of using the Valkre tool.
Yeah, I would think in times that we're in today, I mean, it certainly has always been the case, but especially now when there's some uncertainty in the market, that companies are very protective of their budgets and investment capabilities. And so, they really need to know that it's going to make a difference for them, and probably don't really care so much about talking about the product until they understand, will it really work?
Right.
What am I likely to get out of it? And these are all things that you can prove based on the testimonials and interviews and data that you have from your current customers that probably many industries and competitors don't have. Let's talk about some of the challenges, because I'm sure this hasn't been free from challenge. What do you think others should look out for? What are some of the significant challenges that you've faced?
Jerry and I talk all the time that it is, and I referenced it earlier, this is not a project. It's a new way of doing things, and it does require a culture shift. So I think the challenge with these types of things is getting everybody on the same page, number one. And you have product and product management, R&D, and marketing who spend time thinking about customer challenges and then building products, and then marketing builds the message and materials to help sales. Then you have sales in front of the customer. And a lot of times it can be completely different by the time it gets to the end from what we intended, the problem we intended to solve, or the challenge we intended to help our customers with. Valkre helps hold all that together so that you get more, it's not a sequential, but more of a just put the customer in the middle. And Valkre helps to make sure that we're staying aligned with that customer-centric approach and keeping our eye on the target problem, challenge, business condition we're trying to improve versus a neat idea that starts in R&D and gets eventually out to sales, and it really has no grounding in what customers are looking for. That's been the biggest challenge. Number two is the mindset shift in making it a new way of doing business versus just, there's no end, right? It just keeps going and going, and it's part of how we do things.
All right, we've talked a little bit about the challenges, really bringing the whole team together, making sure that there's a framework for you to all bring, pieces of your own expertise and perspective and make sure it all kind of fits together. Well, let's get to some of the benefits. And I started out talking about the webinar title, which is really how you were leveraging Valkre's customer outcome platform to help fuel a turnaround. And that may be too big of a word, but can you talk about that and how it's benefited you?
I can't go into specific detail, but when I took the Tripwire role, we had many consecutive quarters of negative growth, and last year we turned that around, and now we've had positive results that are leading to sustainable growth in the business. And these things are never attributable to just one thing, but Valkre has been one of many initiatives to help us get the organization back on track for positive growth. It's helped as a tool, but also helped enforce the culture shift that we were looking for, and it's been very positive for us.
Well, one of the questions I always like to kind of end on is if someone said to you tomorrow, oh, you know that, customer outcome platform that you've been using for a long time now, you can't use that anymore. They're going to take it away from you.
Well, that would be a problem. that would be a problem because you can you can't take away the culture or the mindset. The tool helps to reinforce all that and is really part of the change and the transformation. So without the tool, it would be, I don't know what I would do. It would be difficult.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, I want to thank you very much for participating in our webinar series. I've been talking with Chris Williams. He's the Chief Commercial Officer at Tripwire. And again, it's been really interesting. I thank you for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Nancy.
All right. Have a good one, everyone, and look to see you again on the next webinar. Have a great day. Bye-bye.